My sister faked cancer to sabotage my Ivy League dreams, so I exposed her lies and watched her life collapse. 2 years later, she's at my door crying, asking if we can ever be sisters again. My sister was ready to destroy anything and everything to one-up me, including herself. Growing up, I always tried to be best friends with my older sister Sasha. I bought all my clothes based on what her wardrobe looked like, and whenever she started a hobby, I would start it too. But instead of wanting to be my best friend, she started seeing me as her #1 opponent. Whenever she'd come home after winning an award in running, dance, or any other hobby of hers, I copied. "I was the first one," she told. "Bet you couldn't do this, could you?" She'd then wave the award in my face. But instead of crying or getting jealous, I'd hug her super tight and tell her how happy I was for her. But this just made her even angrier, and she'd shove me away, sometimes so hard that my entire body would fall onto the floor. But it wasn't until my 12th birthday that I finally gave up trying because our parents got me a pink glittery bike, one that Sasha always wanted. As soon as I unboxed it, I ran up to her room and banged on her door. When I brought her into the back garden and showed her what I got, I asked if she wanted to be the first one to ride it. "Sure," she said with a smirk plastered on her face. She told me she wanted to ride it on the road, and since she was 16, I figured she was old enough to ride responsibly. But instead of sitting in the seat, she locked eyes with me and threw it into the open road right as a truck passed by and destroyed it. My heart broke, and that was the moment my childhood ended. I vowed to never tell her about my achievements or any updates on my life for that matter. Unfortunately, when I was 14, I won first place at the regional cross-country championships because Sasha hadn't moved out for college yet, so she heard my parents talking about it. But to my surprise, instead of flipping out, she asked to come to my award ceremony. I enthusiastically said yes because I thought she was trying to rebuild our friendship. On the big day, the coach announced the winners in order of lowest to highest, except he never called out my name because right before he could, Sasha dramatically collapsed onto the floor. Everyone turned around to face my family and ask if she was okay. She didn't wake back up until you could hear the ambulance sirens outside. "Oh, sorry, everyone," she announced, jolting straight up. "I just didn't eat enough food today." Everyone marveled about how glad they were to see she was okay. I just rolled my eyes. From there, I kept pretty much everything in my life a secret from not just my sister and parents, but my entire family. It definitely made life lonelier and it took a lot to kill the desire of running to my parents when I got good news. Fast forward to when I was 17 and got accepted into an Ivy League university. My parents found the acceptance letter before me. When I got home, my mom yelled, "Honey, we are so proud of you." Without missing a beat, they started taking a bunch of pictures of me with my acceptance letter to plaster all over their social media. And for the first time in years, I let them be happy for me because I figured that Sasha couldn't do anything to ruin it. But again, I was wrong because the next day, I woke up to my parents barging into my room and throwing all my stuff into black bin bags. "Your sister has just been diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. She'll need one room for her stuff and one to sleep in." My mom's voice was shaking and my dad had tears in his eyes. I instantly knew she was faking it. I just needed some sort of evidence. Sasha came home later that day with a smirk on her face. Her hair was completely bald, which is funny because I had seen a photo on her story with her hair blowing in the wind just a weeks back. Still, she lied down and slept, said the cancer was tiring her out. That night, I cooked her favorite meal, luring her into delusional security. After 2 weeks of me sleeping on the couch, Sasha hosted a party to commemorate her own bravery. She invited everyone we knew, including some girls from my class. Perfect. Halfway through, I tapped on my Fanta glass with a fork. "Sasha, make a speech. We're so proud of you." She immediately recited a speech that I had heard her practice dozens of times in the bathroom mirror. She was halfway through her fake tears when I walked up to her and hugged her. And just as I was about to pull away, I peeled off the bald cap. Her blonde hair unraveled down to her waist. Sasha screamed. My mom gasped so hard I thought her lungs were about to shrivel up. While everyone processed what was going on, I turned on the TV on full volume. There, I broadcasted a clip I had captured of Sasha practicing her speech in the mirror when she thought no one was looking. And instead of finally facing up to her lies, she stormed out of the house and drove away. I went upstairs to my room and let my parents deal with saying goodbye to all the guests. The next morning, I woke up to my mom slapping me across the face. "How could you have embarrassed Sasha like that while she's battling with cancer?" I just stared at her, my cheek burning. My mom said Sasha told them I'd ripped out her hair extensions, that she'd spent thousands on realistic ones because she didn't want people to pity her for being bald. She didn't want to flaunt her wealth by admitting she could afford such expensive extensions. I couldn't believe my parents bought that story, but they did. They completely believed that their daughter with cancer had secret hair extensions that I cruelly exposed. Over the next few days, things got worse. Sasha came back with a stack of medical documents. She had appointment cards and test results and even a treatment schedule. I don't know how she faked them, but they looked real enough to convince my parents. The letterhead looked authentic and everything. Then she started telling them I was emotionally abusive, that I'd been bullying her about the cancer diagnosis. She said I was jealous of the attention she was getting and trying to make everything about my college acceptance. My parents scheduled an emergency therapy appointment for me. They told the therapist I was showing signs of narcissistic personality disorder and needed immediate help. The therapist seemed skeptical at first, but my parents were so convinced that she agreed to see me twice a week. Those sessions were brutal. I had to sit there while this woman asked me why I felt the need to hurt my sick sister. She wanted to explore my jealousy issues and my need for attention. I tried explaining that Sasha was lying, but that just made me look worse. The therapist would nod and write notes about my denial. Meanwhile, Sasha took over the house. She'd host these little gatherings where extended family would come visit the brave cancer patient. She'd make these subtle comments about how hard it was having an unsupportive sister. Nothing obvious enough to call out, but enough to poison everyone against me. I started documenting everything. Every time she slipped up or contradicted herself, I wrote it down. When she claimed to have chemo on Tuesday but posted selfies at the mall, I screenshotted everything. I was building a case, but I needed something concrete. One night, I came home late from school. I'd been working on a big project in the library. When I opened my laptop, the screen was cracked and it wouldn't turn on. All my schoolwork was gone. Years of essays and projects just destroyed. The keyboard was bent like someone had stepped on it. I found Sasha in the kitchen making tea. She smiled at me and said technology could be so unreliable. Then she asked if I'd backed up my college application materials. The way she said it made it clear she knew exactly what happened to my laptop. I spent the next week rebuilding everything from memory. I had to redo assignments and beg teachers for extensions. Some believed me, but others thought I was making excuses. My grades started slipping from the stress. At school, rumors started spreading that I was unstable. Someone told everyone I'd attacked my cancer-stricken sister at her own support party. People I'd known for years started avoiding me in the halls. My lunch table slowly emptied until I was eating alone. Then came the letter from my dream college. They'd received an anonymous tip about concerning behavior and wanted to discuss my acceptance. Someone had reported that I was bullying a family member with terminal illness. They needed to investigate before finalizing my enrollment. I knew it was Sasha, but I couldn't prove it. She'd been so careful to stay anonymous, but she made one mistake. She used specific phrases in the complaint that she'd used before. I recognized her writing style immediately. I decided to get creative with my evidence gathering. I bought tiny voice recorders and hid them around the house. I wanted to catch her admitting something when she thought no one was listening. I placed them behind picture frames, under tables, anywhere she might let her guard down. The recordings picked up more than I expected. Late at night, I'd hear Sasha on the phone laughing about how gullible our parents were. Her voice carried through the thin walls between our rooms, dripping with contempt as she described their worried faces. She'd brag to her friends about getting my room and ruining my college plans, punctuating each revelation with cruel giggles. Sometimes she'd even mimic our mother's concerned voice, exaggerating it until her friends cackled on the other end. I saved every single file to multiple cloud accounts, creating backup after backup with shaking hands. Each recording was labeled with the date and time, organized in folders that documented weeks of deception, but I needed someone who'd actually listen. My parents were too deep in denial, their eyes glazing over whenever I tried to bring up inconsistencies in Sasha's story. They'd change the subject or suddenly remember urgent errands whenever I mentioned her behavior. That's when I remembered Aunt Helen. She'd always been skeptical of Sasha even when we were kids, catching her in small lies at family gatherings. She was the only one who'd noticed when Sasha claimed to win a spelling bee at a school that didn't even have one. Helen lived 2 hours away, but maybe she'd help. I called her from a payphone at school since Sasha monitored my cell. The phone booth smelled like rust and old gum, tucked behind the gymnasium where no one would see me. The metal receiver felt cold against my ear as I fed quarters into the slot, my hands fumbling with the coins. Helen picked up on the third ring, her warm voice instantly making me feel safer. I told her everything as fast as I could, words tumbling over each other like water breaking through a dam. She stayed quiet for a long time, just breathing steadily on the other end, then said she'd suspected something was off when Sasha's cancer story kept changing. First it was lymphoma, then leukemia, then some rare form that kept shifting names. Helen agreed to come visit that weekend. She said she'd pretend it was just to support Sasha, but really she wanted to see the evidence I'd collected. Her voice had that determined edge I remembered from when she'd helped me with math homework years ago. Finally, someone believed me. I hung up feeling hopeful for the first time in weeks, the spring in my step drawing curious looks from passing students. That Friday, I got home to find my recordings were gone. Every single device had vanished from their hiding spots. The drawer under my desk was empty, dust outlines showing where the recorders had been. The box in my closet cleared out. Even the backup USB drives I'd hidden in an old shoe were missing. Sasha was sitting on the couch reading a magazine like nothing happened, her legs tucked underneath her. The magazine was one of those celebrity gossip rags, her fingers lazily turning pages. When I asked about them, she said she didn't know what I was talking about, not even glancing up from her reading. Her voice was innocent, practiced, like she'd rehearsed this moment. I still had the cloud backups, but now I was paranoid. That night, I changed all my passwords and set up two-factor authentication on everything. I even created dummy accounts with fake evidence in case she got into those too. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I built layer after layer of digital protection. I used password managers and security questions based on things only I would know, references to books Sasha had never read and places she'd never been. Helen arrived Saturday morning with a casserole and a concerned expression. She wore her good pearls, the ones she saved for important occasions, and her gray hair was freshly styled. She hugged Sasha and told her how brave she was, her acting skills rivaling any performance I'd seen. Sasha ate it up, going on about her treatment and how hard everything was. She even managed to make her voice quaver at just the right moments. I watched from the kitchen, biting my tongue so hard I tasted copper. The casserole sat on the counter, still warm, smelling like childhood comfort I couldn't access. Later, Helen asked to see my room to help me reorganize since I'd given it up for Sasha. It was a clever excuse that wouldn't raise suspicion. Once we were alone, I showed her everything on my phone. The recordings, the screenshots, the timeline of lies I'd meticulously documented. Each piece of evidence was annotated with context and cross-references. Her face got darker with each piece of evidence, her jaw tightening as she listened to Sasha's cruel laughter. She had to sit down on my bed when she heard the part about Sasha planning to intercept my college acceptance letter. We spent an hour going through it all. Helen pointed out inconsistencies I'd missed, like how Sasha claimed to have chemo every Monday but was somehow never sick on Tuesdays, or how our medical documents all had the same watermark pattern even though they were supposedly from different offices. She showed me how the fonts matched perfectly, the margins identical. She even noticed the medical terminology was slightly off, like someone had researched terms online rather than copying from real documents. Her years working at a law firm handling medical malpractice cases had trained her eye for authentic medical paperwork. Helen said she'd talk to my parents, but we needed to be strategic. If we came on too strong, they'd get defensive and shut down completely. She'd seen it before with her own siblings, how confrontation could backfire when people were emotionally invested in a lie. She suggested waiting until dinner when everyone was relaxed. I agreed even though waiting felt impossible, my stomach churning with anxiety. We spent the afternoon pretending everything was normal, helping Mom in the kitchen and listening to Dad's work stories. At dinner, Sasha was in full performance mode. She pushed food around her plate and sighed about how the treatment cooled her appetite. She'd taken exactly 3 small bites of chicken, cutting them into tiny pieces for maximum effect. My mom immediately offered to make her something else, jumping up from the table. Dad rubbed her shoulder and said she was so strong, his voice thick with emotion. The dining room felt suffocating with all the manufactured sympathy. Helen started casual. She asked about Sasha's treatment plan and which hospital she was using. Her tone was conversational, like she was asking about the weather. Sasha gave vague answers about privacy and not wanting to burden everyone with details. Helen pushed a little more, mentioning she had a friend who was an oncologist who might help. She even pulled out her phone like she was ready to make the connection right there. Sasha's eye twitched, but she covered it by dabbing at fake tears. She said she appreciated the offer, but her team was handling everything. When Helen asked for the oncologist's name to send a thank you card, Sasha suddenly needed to use the bathroom, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She walked slowly, playing up the weakness, one hand trailing along the wall for support. While she was gone, Helen looked at my parents. She asked if they'd actually gone to any appointments with Sasha. My mom admitted they hadn't because Sasha said she needed to be independent. She looked embarrassed, twisting her napkin in her lap. Dad added that Sasha was protecting them from the harsh reality. His hands folded tightly on the table. His knuckles were white with tension he didn't even realize he was carrying. Helen pulled out her phone and showed them my evidence. At first, they didn't want to look, turning their heads away like children avoiding vegetables, but Helen insisted, going through each recording and screenshot methodically. She had them organized in a presentation, professional and undeniable. My mom's face went white when she heard Sasha laughing about fooling them, her hand flying to her mouth. Dad's expression shifted from disbelief to horror to rage in the span of 30 seconds. Sasha came back to find us all staring at her. The silence was deafening, broken only by the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. She immediately started crying about how we were ganging up on a cancer patient. When that didn't work, she accused me of faking the recordings with AI. Then she said I drugged her to make her say those things, her lies becoming more desperate and wild. Each new excuse contradicted the last, a house of cards collapsing in real time. My dad stood up slowly, his chair creaking under the shift of weight. He asked her point blank if she had cancer. His voice had the same tone from when I was little and he'd caught me sneaking cookies. Sasha tried more tears but he just repeated the question, his voice steady and firm. Finally, she exploded. She screamed that we all loved my achievements more than her, that I'd stolen her parents' attention with my stupid college acceptance. Spit flew from her mouth as years of resentment poured out. The truth came pouring out in a torrent. She admitted faking everything, but said it was our fault for making her feel invisible. She'd spent years being the older sister, but I got all the praise for copying her. She said destroying my bike was the only time she felt powerful, her face contorting with years of suppressed rage. She even admitted to smaller things I'd never suspected, hiding my library books so I'd get fines, telling kids at school embarrassing lies about me, deleting my essays from the family computer. My mom started sobbing, deep wrenching sounds that shook her whole body. Dad had to sit back down like his legs gave out, gripping the edge of the table. The wood groaned under his grip. Helen recorded the whole confession on her phone just in case Sasha tried to deny it later. I felt numb watching my family fall apart, like I was floating above the scene. The untouched food on the table seemed absurd in the midst of such destruction. Sasha wasn't done though. She lunged at me, screaming that I'd ruined everything. Her nails caught my mom's arm when she tried to get between us. Blood ran down Mom's wrist and that finally snapped everyone out of their shock. The red drops hit the white tablecloth, spreading like tiny roses. Mom stared at her arm like she couldn't comprehend what had happened. Dad grabbed Sasha and pulled her back. She was thrashing and screaming about how much she hated me, how I'd stolen her life by being born, how every achievement I had was just to make her look bad. Years of rage came out in one terrifying burst, her voice raw and primal. The neighbor's dog started barking, sensing the chaos through the walls. Helen called 911 while Dad held Sasha. She gave the address calmly, her legal training keeping her focused. The paramedics came for my mom's arm, but ended up taking Sasha too. She'd worked herself into such a state they were worried she might hurt herself. As they led her away, she kept screaming that this was all my fault, her voice echoing down our quiet street. Porch lights flickered on as neighbors peered through curtains. The house felt empty after that. Mom needed stitches and antibiotics. The doctor said the scratches were deep but would heal fine. They cleaned and bandaged her arm with gentle efficiency. Dad drove her home in silence, the only sound of the car engine. None of us knew what to say. The hospital bracelet on Mom's wrist caught the streetlights as we pulled into our driveway. That night, my parents sat me down to apologize. They said they'd been so shocked by the cancer story, they never questioned it. They'd wanted to support their sick daughter and ended up enabling her lies. Mom cried when she talked about slapping me, touching her hand to my cheek gently. The gesture was so different from that day, tender and full of regret. I told them about all the things Sasha had done over the years, not to hurt them, but so they'd understand this wasn't new. They were horrified to learn about the birthday bike and the awards ceremony. They had no idea how long this had been going on, each revelation hitting them like a physical blow. Dad kept shaking his head, muttering about signs he'd missed. We agreed Sasha needed professional help. Real therapy, not the kind they'd forced on me. Dad called around and found a place that specialized in personality disorders. They had an opening the next week if Sasha agreed to go. He spent hours on the phone, his notebook filling with names and numbers, insurance coverage, treatment approaches, success rates. He researched like his life depended on it. Meanwhile, I had to fix my life. The college was still investigating the anonymous complaint. I sent them the recording of Sasha's confession along with a letter from Helen explaining the situation. I included the therapy note showing I was the victim, not the bully. Each document felt like a piece of my dignity being restored. The admissions officer called personally to apologize for the confusion. School was harder to fix. Rumors don't die easily, especially in a small high school where gossip is currency. Some people believed me when I explained, but others thought I was making excuses. I focused on my real friends and ignored the whispers in the hallway. It hurt, but I'd survived worse. My AP teachers were especially supportive, having seen my dedication firsthand. My teachers were more understanding. When I explained about the laptop and showed them the police report Dad filed, they gave me extensions. I spent weeks catching up on assignments, my desk lamp burning late into the night. My grades slowly recovered, but it was exhausting. Each test and paper a mountain to climb. Coffee became my best friend and the library staff knew me by name. Sasha came home after 3 days of observation. She was required to attend therapy twice a week. The therapist said she showed signs of narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features. It would take years of work to address, she warned us, setting realistic expectations. She gave us pamphlets about family dynamics and enabling behaviors. She moved back into her old room without apology. We avoided each other completely, creating invisible barriers in our shared spaces. When we passed in the hall, she'd look through me like I wasn't there. I was fine with that. I'd given up on having a sister years ago. The house felt like it was split in two, separate worlds existing under one roof. But she wasn't done trying to hurt me. I caught her in my room one day going through my college paperwork. When I confronted her, she said she was just borrowing a pen, but I noticed my acceptance letter was crumpled like she'd been squeezing it. The official seal wrinkled beyond repair. The violation of my space made my skin crawl. I installed a lock on my door that night. My parents didn't object, understanding the necessity without me having to explain. They knew we needed boundaries while Sasha worked through her issues. Mom even helped me pick out a sturdy deadbolt from the hardware store, testing each one for strength. The click of that lock became the sound of safety. The next few months were tense. Sasha would have good days where she seemed almost normal, laughing at TV shows and helping with dishes. Then she'd have setbacks where the anger came back. Her therapist warned us recovery wasn't linear. We had to be patient but also protect ourselves. Family dinners became exercises in careful navigation. I started keeping anything important in a safe. My laptop, documents, even sentimental items went in there each night. It felt extreme, but I couldn't risk another sabotage attempt. The safe gave me peace of mind to focus on school. The combination was my birthday, a date Sasha had always resented. Even choosing those numbers felt like reclaiming something. College finally confirmed they were keeping my acceptance. The admissions board said they understood the situation and appreciated my honesty. They even offered resources for dealing with family trauma. I cried reading that email, relief washing over me in waves. My future was secure again. The path forward clear. Prom season arrived and I let myself get excited. I'd found a beautiful dress on sale and my friend Aaron asked me to go as friends. It felt good to have something normal to look forward to. I even caught myself humming while doing homework. Old happiness creeping back in. The dress hung in my closet like a promise of one perfect night. The night of prom, I was doing my makeup when I heard a crash. My dress was on the floor, covered in what looked like bleach. The fabric was ruined. Huge white splotches all over the blue material. Sasha's bathroom door clicked shut down the hall. The chemical smell burned my nose. I stood there in my slip, staring at the destroyed dress, feeling all the excitement drain away. I wanted to scream, but instead I called Helen. She drove over with her daughter's old prom dress. It was green instead of blue, but it fit perfectly. Helen did my hair while I tried not to cry. She said I looked beautiful and meant it, her hands gentle as she pinned each curl. She even had matching jewelry in her purse, like she'd known I'd need rescuing. At prom, nobody cared that my dress was different than planned. Erin and I danced until our feet hurt. For a few hours, I forgot about Sasha and the chaos at home. I just gotta be a normal teenager celebrating with friends. The gym was transformed with twinkling lights and silver streamers. We took dozens of photos, genuine smiles replacing the forced ones from family portraits. When I got home, Sasha was in the living room. She looked at the green dress and her face fell. I realized she'd been waiting to see me cry about the ruined dress. When I smiled and said I had an amazing night, she stormed off to her room, her disappointment palpable. For once, her plan to hurt me had failed completely. The next week, her therapist called a family meeting. She said Sasha had admitted to the dress incident and several other acts of sabotage. The therapist recommended a more intensive program, maybe residential treatment where Sasha could focus on healing without triggers. She explained that the current approach wasn't working fast enough. My parents were torn. They wanted to help Sasha but worried about sending her away. The therapist explained that sometimes distance was necessary for everyone to heal. She gave them brochures for several programs that specialized in personality disorders, glossy pages filled with promises of recovery. Each facility had testimonials from families who'd found peace through separation. That night I heard my parents arguing. Mom wanted to try the residential program, but Dad thought they'd failed Sasha by not catching this earlier. They went back and forth about whose fault it was. I put on headphones and tried to focus on homework, calculus problems blurring through my tears. Their raised voices penetrated even through my music. Sasha must have heard them too because the next day she announced she'd go to treatment. She said she was tired of being angry all the time. For the first time in years, she looked genuinely exhausted instead of plotting something. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. The fight seemed to have gone out of her, replaced by something hollow. We drove her to the facility the following Monday. It was 3 hours away, surrounded by mountains and gardens. The staff seemed kind, but firm. They explained the program would last at least 6 months with family therapy sessions once a month. The building looked more like a retreat than a hospital. Other families were saying goodbyes in the parking lot, each carrying their own heavy stories. Sasha hugged our parents goodbye but ignored me. I was okay with that. I didn't need a tearful reconciliation. I just needed her to get help and leave me alone. As we drove away, I felt lighter than I had in years, watching the facility disappear in the rearview mirror. The mountains looked peaceful, like they could hold all our family's pain and transform it. The house was peaceful without her. I moved back into my room properly, spreading out my things without fear. My parents and I had quiet dinners where we actually talked. Mom started asking about my day again. Genuinely interested in my answers. We even played board games some nights, rediscovering how to be a family of 3. I threw myself into senior year activities. I joined the yearbook committee and started tutoring underclassmen in math. My college acceptance was secure and I could finally enjoy high school. Friends started hanging out again once the drama died down. My calendar filled with normal teenage activities, study groups, movie nights, college planning sessions. Life became wonderfully ordinary. The first family therapy session was rough. Sasha had to acknowledge the harm she'd caused. She read from a list, monotone, and clearly unhappy about it. But the therapist said admitting wrongdoing was the first step, even if she didn't feel it yet. The room smelled like lavender and felt too small. We sat in a circle. The distance between us measured in more than feet. We went once a month as required. Sometimes Sasha participated and sometimes she just glared. The therapist worked with all of us on boundaries and communication. My parents had to admit they'd enabled her behavior by not addressing it earlier. Each session peeled back layers of family dysfunction. Mom cried a lot. Dad learned to express emotions beyond anger. I learned to speak up for myself without guilt. I started seeing my own therapist to process everything. She helped me understand that Sasha's problems weren't my fault, that wanting a sister wasn't what caused this. It took months to really believe that, but eventually I did. Her office became a safe space where I could finally exhale. We worked through years of suppressed fear and confusion. Senior year flew by in a blur of activities and milestones. I got into National Honor Society and won a scholarship for my essay about overcoming family challenges. My parents came to every ceremony, beaming with pride. They'd learned to celebrate my achievements without guilt. The auditorium lights felt warm on my face as I accepted each award. Each accomplishment was mine alone, no longer shadowed by Sasha's jealousy. Sasha slowly improved in treatment. Her letters home became less angry and more reflective. She started taking responsibility without blaming others. The therapist said she was making real progress, but warned us not to expect miracles. Recovery would be a lifelong journey, not a destination. But for the first time in my life, I had hoped that maybe someday I'd have the sister I'd always wanted, even if that day was still far away. Graduation day arrived faster than expected. I woke up early to iron my cap and gown, the fabric crisp under the hot metal. My parents were already in the kitchen making my favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries, just like when I was little. Dad kept taking photos of everything, even my half-eaten breakfast. Mom fussed with my hair until I gently pushed her hands away. The ceremony was at 10, but we left at 8 because Dad wanted good seats. The high school parking lot was already filling up with families carrying flowers and balloons. I found my friends near the gym entrance and we took about 100 selfies. Everyone kept saying we looked so grown up in our caps and gowns. During the ceremony, I spotted my parents in the third row. Mom was already crying and we hadn't even started yet. Helen sat next to them with her camera ready. When they called my name for the scholarship award, Dad whooped so loud everyone turned to look. I didn't even feel embarrassed, just proud. After getting my diploma, I found them in the crowd. Group hug turned into more crying from Mom. Helen handed me a card with a check inside for college expenses. I tried to give it back, but she insisted. Said it was an investment in my future. Dad took more photos until my face hurt from smiling. We went to lunch at my favorite restaurant. Halfway through appetizers, Mom's phone rang. It was the treatment facility. Sasha wanted to talk to me. I hadn't heard her voice in 2 months. My parents looked at me expectantly but didn't push. I took the phone outside where it was quieter. She said congratulations on graduating. Her voice sounded different. Calmer maybe. Less sharp around the edges. She asked about my college plans and actually listened to the answer. When I told her about the scholarship, she said good job. Not sarcastically either, just genuine. The conversation lasted 5 minutes but felt significant. Summer passed in a blur of preparation. College shopping with Mom, who bought way too many shower caddies. Dad teaching me basic car maintenance in the driveway. Oil changes, tire pressure, jump starting batteries. He made me practice everything twice. Helen threw me a going-away party with all my favorite foods. The treatment facility called about a special family session before I left for school. They said Sasha had something important to share. We drove up on a Saturday. The mountains green with summer growth. The building looked less intimidating now. Families sat in the garden areas talking quietly. In the session room, Sasha looked healthier. She'd gained weight and her skin had color again. She read from a paper, hands shaking slightly. It was an apology. A real one. She went through specific incidents and acknowledged how they hurt me. The bike, the laptop, the dress, each memory carefully examined. She said she'd been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and borderline traits. That wasn't an excuse but an explanation. She was learning to manage her emotions without hurting others. The therapist nodded encouragingly as she spoke. When she finished, we all sat in silence for a moment. I didn't forgive her, not yet, but I thanked her for the apology and said I hoped treatment kept helping. That was all I could give right then. The therapist said that was perfectly okay. Forgiveness couldn't be forced or rushed. Everyone had their own timeline for healing. We had lunch at a nearby cafe. Sasha came with supervision from a staff member. She ordered soup and actually ate it. We talked about safe topics like movies and weather. When she asked about my roommate assignment, I showed her the email. She said the girl seemed nice based on her Facebook profile. Drive home was quiet. My parents kept exchanging looks in the front seat. Finally, Mom said they were proud of how I handled myself, that I'd shown maturity beyond my years. Dad added that I didn't owe Sasha anything. My feelings were valid, whatever they were. 2 weeks before college, I was packing when I found something strange. A small wrapped box in my desk drawer. Inside was a necklace with my birthstone. The receipt showed Sasha had ordered it from the treatment facility's craft program. A tiny note said, "For your new beginning." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't wear it, but I did pack it. Maybe someday I would, maybe not. But the gesture meant something even if I wasn't ready to accept it fully. I wrapped it carefully in tissue paper and tucked it into my jewelry box. Progress came in small steps. Move-in day was chaos. Dad insisted on carrying everything himself until his back started hurting. Mom reorganized my dorm room 3 times. My roommate Kimberly and her parents watched with amusement. By evening, our room looked like a Bed Bath & Beyond exploded, but it felt like home. Saying goodbye was harder than expected. Mom ugly cried in the parking lot. Dad kept clearing his throat and checking the car tires. I promised to call every week and text daily. Helen had already sent a care package that arrived before I did. Cookies and tea and a note saying she was proud. College was everything I'd hoped for. Hard classes but interesting ones. Late-night study sessions fueled by pizza. My roommate became a close friend after we bonded over terrible dining hall food. I joined the running club and made more friends. No one knew about my family drama and that felt like freedom. The first family therapy session I missed felt weird. Mom called afterward to fill me in. Sasha was doing well, taking responsibility without prompting. She'd started helping younger residents with their initial adjustments. The therapist called it significant progress. I was glad but also relieved to be far away. I came home for Thanksgiving break. The house felt different, calmer. My parents had redecorated some rooms and started hosting game nights with friends. They looked happier, lighter, like they'd been holding their breath for years and finally exhaled. Mom cooked enough food for 20 people. Sasha was allowed a supervised home visit for Thanksgiving dinner. She looked nervous walking through the door. We all sat at the table like strangers pretending to be family, but gradually conversation started. She asked about my classes and seemed genuinely interested in my biology major. No competitive comments or put-downs. After dinner, she helped clear plates without being asked. When Mom brought out pie, Sasha asked if she could say something. She thanked us for not giving up on her, said she knew she'd put us through hell, that she was committed to being better even though it was hard work. Dad reached over and squeezed her hand. She went back to treatment that night, but the visit felt like progress. I didn't hug her goodbye, but I did wave from the porch. Small steps. The therapist had said healing wasn't linear. There would be good days and bad days, but at least we were moving forward. Winter break brought more changes. Sasha completed the first phase of treatment and moved to a transitional housing program. She got a part-time job at a bookstore, started taking community college classes online. The structure seemed to help her. She had to follow rules and meet expectations. We had another family session where the therapist talked about reintegration. Sasha wouldn't move home right away, maybe not ever, but she could visit more often, have dinner once a week, attend family events with notice. Everyone needed boundaries to feel safe. The therapist helped us write them down. I went back to college feeling cautiously optimistic. My parents visited for Parents' Weekend and met all my friends. Mom embarrassed me by taking photos of everything including my messy dorm room. Dad wore my college sweatshirt everywhere. They looked happy, really happy. Not forcing it anymore. Spring semester flew by. I made Dean's List and got invited to join the honors program. My parents framed the letter. Helen sent congratulations flowers. Even Sasha texted saying she was proud. Each achievement felt fully mine now. No shadow hanging over it. No fear of retaliation. I came home for spring break to find Sasha had visited several times. My parents said dinners were going well. She was taking accountability in therapy and working on emotional regulation. The bookstore manager liked her work ethic. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. Mom kept her voice neutral when sharing updates. We had dinner together that Wednesday. Sasha asked about my summer plans and I told her about my research internship. She said that sounded impressive and asked questions about the project. Real questions. Not looking for weaknesses to exploit. When I mentioned being nervous, she said I'd do great. The meal ended without drama. She helped load the dishwasher and thanked Mom for cooking, said goodbye without making it weird. After she left, my parents looked at me expectantly. I said it was fine, and it was. Not great, but not terrible. Just fine. Sometimes fine was enough. Summer brought more stability. I threw myself into research and loved every minute. My parents visited the lab and tried to understand my project about protein folding. Sasha continued therapy and kept her job. We had family dinners every other week. Conversation got easier with practice. One night, she asked if we could talk privately. We sat on the back porch like we used to as kids. She said she knew she'd stolen years from me, that she couldn't give them back but wanted to do better going forward. I told her I appreciated that, but trust would take time, maybe forever. She said she understood. Before sophomore year started, we had a final family session. The therapist said Sasha had made remarkable progress but would need ongoing support. She'd learned to recognize her triggers and manage reactions. The personality disorder would always be there, but she could control how it affected others. Everyone had worked hard to get here. I went back to college feeling settled. My family wasn't perfect, but it was healing. Sasha texted occasionally with normal stuff, songs she liked or books she'd read. I responded when I felt like it. No pressure either way. We were finding a new rhythm that worked for everyone. Sophomore year brought new challenges and opportunities. I declared my major officially and started research with a professor. My parents called weekly with updates. Sasha was taking more classes and doing well. She'd made some friends in her therapy group, baby steps toward a normal life. When I came home for winter break, Sasha had her own apartment, a studio near the bookstore. She invited us over for dinner and actually cooked. The pasta was overcooked, but no one complained. She showed us her space with obvious pride, everything neat and organized. A fresh start made visible. We exchanged Christmas presents awkwardly. She got me a gift card to my favorite store, safe and practical. I got her a journal for therapy work, also safe, but we were trying. That counted for something. Mom took photos of us sitting on the couch, not quite comfortable, but not hostile either. The rest of break passed peacefully. Family dinners happened without incident. Sasha came to my high school friend's party and behaved normally. She even laughed at Aaron's terrible jokes. When someone asked about our relationship, we both said it was complicated but improving. That felt honest. I helped her move some furniture one afternoon, just the two of us in her apartment. She put on music and we worked without much talking. When we finished, she made tea and we sat on her new couch. She said she was grateful I was giving her a chance, that she knew she didn't deserve it but appreciated it anyway. I told her about my college friends and classes. She listened without interrupting or comparing. When I mentioned struggling with organic chemistry, she offered to help. Turns out she'd taken it at community college and done well. We spent an hour going over my notes. She was patient and explained things clearly. That night, I told my parents about the tutoring. They exchanged surprised looks. Mom said that was wonderful. Dad reminded me to maintain boundaries. I said I knew, but maybe boundaries could shift slowly, include more space for connection if everyone stayed healthy. The therapist had said flexibility was important. Spring semester started with new energy. Sasha and I texted about chemistry homework. She sent helpful videos and practice problems. My grade improved from a C to a B+. I thanked her and she said helping me felt good, like she was contributing something positive for once. We developed a routine, weekly texts about school, monthly video calls to review difficult concepts. She never pushed for more contact than I offered. When I didn't respond for a few days, she didn't guilt trip, just waited until I was ready. The respect for boundaries felt significant. By the time sophomore year ended, our relationship had found steady ground, not close, but functional. We could share space without tension, have conversations without hidden agendas. She came to my academic award ceremony and clapped genuinely. No scene or drama, just support. That summer, I studied abroad in Spain. Sasha helped me pack and gave advice about traveling. She'd done a semester abroad before everything fell apart. Her tips about homestays and culture shock proved helpful. We hugged goodbye at the airport. Brief but real. Mom cried happy tears. I sent postcards home to everyone including Sasha. She saved them in a box, she told me later. When I got back, she wanted to hear stories, see photos. She asked questions about the research I'd done there, remembered details from previous conversations, acting like a normal sister for once. Junior year arrived with graduate school applications looming. Sasha offered to proofread my personal statements. I hesitated but agreed. She gave thoughtful feedback without trying to sabotage anything, even caught some typos I'd missed. When I got interviews, she helped me practice, constructive and supportive. The years of therapy had changed her, not into a perfect person, but someone who could function without destroying others. She still struggled with jealousy sometimes. I'd see flashes of the old Sasha when I shared good news, but she'd catch herself and apologize. Real work on real change. When acceptance letters started arriving, she was genuinely excited for me. No fake cancer diagnosis or mysterious illnesses, just congratulations and questions about which program I'd choose. She even offered to help me move when the time came. I said we'd see but appreciated the offer. Senior year flew by in preparation for the future. Sasha came to graduation without making it about her, sat with my parents and cheered at appropriate times, took photos when asked, gave me a card with a heartfelt message about being proud of my accomplishments. I actually believe she meant it. That summer we spent more time together than we had in years. She helped me apartment hunt in my new city, drove me to IKEA for furniture, assembled bookcases without complaining. We even laughed at some points. Not forced or careful laughter, just natural reactions to funny moments. The night before I moved, she asked if we could be real sisters someday. Not now, but eventually. When enough time had passed and trust was rebuilt, I said maybe, that I wanted to believe it was possible but couldn't promise anything. She said that was fair, more than she deserved really. We loaded the moving truck together, my parents emotional but trying to hide it, Sasha practical and helpful. When everything was packed, she handed me a small gift, a framed photo of us as kids, before everything went wrong, both of us grinning at the camera, sisters who didn't know what was coming. I hung it in my new apartment, not prominently, but visible. A reminder that people could change, that families could heal even after deep wounds, that forgiveness was possible even if it took years to arrive. The photo faced my desk where I'd see it while studying. Two little girls who deserved better than they got. Sasha and I text regularly now, not daily but consistently. She tells me about her job and classes. I share stories from graduate school. We're building something new on the ashes of what was destroyed. It's fragile and imperfect, but it's ours. Maybe that's enough for now. Looking back, I can see how far we've all come. From that horrible party where I pulled off her bald cap to now. Years of therapy and work and pain. But also growth. My parents learning to see clearly. Sasha learning to live without destroying. Me learning to protect myself while staying open to possibility. We're not the family we could have been. Too much damage for that. But we're the family we chose to become. Scarred, but healing. Careful, but hopeful. Taking it one day at a time because that's all anyone can do. And for now, that's enough.